Hey everybody, my name is Matthew Sambanis. I'm a certified public accountant. My firm is based in Long Island, New York. And in today's video, we are going to discuss the restaurant Armageddon going on. In particular, the state of the economy, the amount of restaurants that have closed. I'm talking about local chains, local restaurants, and of course, national chains, franchisees that have been closing up shop of these major conglomerate restaurant chains as well. We're going to discuss the cause of it. We're going to also go over Main Street to Wall Street, the stock market, inflation, which, the solution to inflation is higher prices. And that's what's happened in the restaurant industry. And, case in point, when you go to the supermarket, the cost of everything is 2 to 3 times higher, right? And that means the cost to the restaurant industry is 2 to 3 times higher. Now, granted, they're buying at wholesale, so they pay less than you and I would pay as everyday consumers, but they're still paying more. So the solution to them is to raise their prices. And the problem with that is you can only raise your prices so much before people start to balk and stop going there, or they look for cheaper solutions, and the list goes on. I also do want to point out that there are plenty of restaurants that are thriving. Case in point, Chipotle. Somehow, they keep their foot traffic up. They keep raising their prices. They keep, it's mind blowing to me. The last time I went to Chipotle, I got a medium or a large. I got a steak burrito, and I made the mistake, God forbid, of adding on queso and guac, and it was $20. And had I not been starving, I would have told them to keep it. I was just apoplectic. That was months ago, and I haven't gone to Chipotle since then, and I don't plan on going back anytime soon. Other factors affecting the restaurant industry is the minimum wage law. We're going to discuss not just California, which is completely a psychopathic state, but all the other states, and the average increase in wages, which I can tell you is much higher than 2%. We're going to also discuss, the resultant impact of this, in particular job losses, people shopping at the supermarket now, food banks, the amount of people that have been going to food banks as the economy crashes has gone up through the roof. We're going to discuss it, basically at the worldwide level, the national level, and the local level. And when I say the local level, I mean, New York, because I'm in Long Island, and in particular New York City. But again, the heartbeat of New York City. I'm sure if I did, my due diligence in any other state or city or town for that matter, it would reflect the same thing. If you're into economics, finance, making money, how to make money, and other things of that nature, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And, please stay tuned. And if you have any comments or thoughts about the restaurant industry or anything that pops into your head, just let me know. So anyway, let's get rocking and rolling here. I have my timer over here. I set it for 10 minutes. I always try to go for 10 minutes, and I always end up at 20 minutes. But if you stay till the end, it is worth it. So anyway, restaurant stock slide as Wall Street sours on consumer. This is an article from July 9th from Zero Hedge, and it came out and just said the middle class is struggling under the burden of elevated inflation and high interest rates. And Wall Street analysts are increasingly worried about a slowdown in consumer spending. Warning signs are getting louder by the week. Goldman Sachs, there's two ways to look at Goldman Sachs, right? From an investment banking and from a company's standpoint, they're the best of the best, or they're the best at being the worst, But anyway, this is going back to, July 8th. Fears of slowdown also sparked selling in the S&P 1500 restaurant index in late afternoon trading, down nearly 2%, marking its lowest intraday level since November 1st. And, the issue with elevated spending is it doesn't show, it's not adjusted for inflation, right? So when we get these inflation reports, it doesn't show that, yes, people are spending more, but they're getting less. And, just to give you some insight from Wall Street, which affects Main Street directly, Piper Sandler, June traffic trends for casual dining fail to show any real evidence of noteworthy improvement from uninspiring May. Gordon Haskett, Jeffrey Farmer cut price target on fast food giant McDonald's, right in the initial customer response to the company's $5 meal deal has been underwhelming. Again, this is now going back to July, but as we now know, that's been overwhelming, not based on McDonald's recent quarterly earnings, but based on the fact that they plan on running this deal through the end of the year. And, what that also means now is these mom and pop restaurants have to, how are you going to compete with a $5 footlong or a $5, specialty, whatever. It's not a specialty. It's actually disgusting poison, in my opinion. But, a Big Mac from McDonald's for $5 or a Burger King, and all these other large restaurant chains are rolling out these $4 or $5 meals to get low consumers back. And of course, I understand. Listen, I love Taco Bell once every 3 months. Yes, it's absolutely disgusting. But it just hits the spot. I get that weird craving, and I happen to, which we're also going to touch on, love Buffalo Wild Wings once every couple months. Their appetizer sampler. What are your favorite foods? What are your guilty pleasures, by the way? I'd love to know. Anyway, moving along, KeyBank, Eric Gonzalez writes, we believe several brands within our coverage universe are at risk of missing consensus same-store sales forecast for the second quarter, including McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's, Starbucks, which it did miss, KFC, which it did miss, Papa John's, Dine Brands, and Applebee's. And we're going to go over Applebee's in a little bit, but basically Applebee's shut down a ton of stores as well. So that's Wall Street's perspective. They're basically stopping short, no pun intended, and saying short, or they are actually. Goldman Sachs literally came out and said, short the lower middle class, short lower class people, short middle income consumers. They're taking a beating, and they're right. And as we've seen over the last few days, it's August 6th, and finally the stock market has been put down. It hasn't gone up consistently every day. It's been knocked down, and by a good amount. As a matter of fact, last week, the NASDAQ was down 6% in a day. Granted, it closed down 3%, so it did manage to bounce off the lows. But they're taking a beating. So anyway, to go over some of the major restaurant chains, TGIF Fridays has closed numerous locations across the U.S. and sold 8 corporate-owned locations to strengthen their franchise model and close underperforming stores. There used to be a few Fridays near me. There's not. I wouldn't go there again. Denny's, just that alone sounds disgusting, but they shut down 57 restaurants in 2023. And announced additional closures for 2024 due to inflationary pressures. And what are inflationary pressures? You'd think higher prices, but the result or the cause of higher prices is the printing of money and the expansion of credit. And who does that? Credit card companies and the government. Boston market drastically reduced its number of restaurants from around 300 to just 27 in March 2024. That was something I used to like here once in a blue moon. But when you look at it at actual eye level, to me, it's gross, but whatever. Mod Pizza abruptly closed 27 locations across the U.S., including 5 in California, just before the new minimum wage law took effect. Coco Bakery and Caro's chains closed 75 locations. PDQ, a regional restaurant chain, closed 8 restaurants across North and South Carolina. Outback Steakhouse, Outback hasn't done anything new in years. Anybody could have seen this coming. I used to go there, I'd say a decent amount, and I've just gone there less and less. I think probably last time I was there was 2 years ago, but it's dark, it's dingy, the food's not that good, and frankly, it's overpriced. And they were shuttering 41 locations of Outback Steakhouses. Carrabba's Italian Grill and Bonefish Grill in February 2024 announced major financial restructuring. Subway. Subway has just absolutely been stained by that guy who I'm not even going to mention. All we can say is it was very sick and gross. Has been undergoing a massive drawdown, closing over 400 underperforming locations since the last year alone. Applebee's has been selectively closing locations since the start of 2024. And like I said, Buffalo Wild Wings will eliminate 60 locations in the United States. IHOP International will close down 100 locations, and other firms eliminating locations include Pizza Hut, Red Lobster, Hooters, and Chili's. and a ton more. And, why is this? Higher prices. And what's the higher prices? The higher prices is the printing of the money supply or inflation. And, listen, all right, the cost of the food went up, the cost of their materials, their cups, their supplies, their plastic forks, their metal forks. Utilities have gone through the roof, and, labor's gone through the roof. And, what does that mean? That people go out, shopping less and less. I've been much more conscientious. Yes, I can afford to go out, but I've been much more conscientious. I can't pronounce it. I've been much more conscious about going to the supermarket and making my own food and eating at home. Or if I go somewhere, I make sure I'm going to get my money's worth. Case in point, I went to, wow, I lost my train of thought. I went to, a local Fat Boy Burritos in Northport. If you're familiar with the area, they have a few chains, but I went there and it was like $16, but I got 3 meals out of it. I got lunch, I got dinner last night, and I have leftovers. So let's discuss minimum wages now. All right, minimum wage, which again, as an employee, you want to get paid as much as possible, and as an employer, you want to pay as little as possible. But again, you want to pay as little as possible, but you also know that you have to keep your employees happy. So it's a fine line, and it's supply and demand. Anyway, for 2024, the biggest offender of minimum wage, and whether there should be a minimum wage or not is another video for another day. And how do I mean? Don't get irate, don't get angry, don't say this guy's out of his mind. But if Hawaii says the minimum wage is $14 for me to go work at a restaurant, and that's what they have to pay me having no experience, but I'm willing to receive $8 an hour or $10 an hour to feed my family and make ends meet and take on a part-time or a full-time job, as an individual, shouldn't I have that right to accept less than a minimum wage? And, unfortunately, minimum wage also has negative, there's an upside, but there's a downside to it. So anyway, previous minimum wage in Hawaii was $12. The new minimum wage in Hawaii as of 2024 is $14. That's a 17% increase. That's much higher than the Federal Reserve's 2% inflation rate. And, this shows 24 states. So Hawaii is the worst, the best, or the worst, I guess, right? However you want to look at it. And Michigan, their minimum wage in 2023 was $10.10 per hour. And now it's $10.33 an hour, which is, again, I don't know Michigan well enough to make a comment one way or another, but that's a 2.28% inflation rate. And so if you take the average increase of minimum wage from Hawaii to Michigan, it's 6.10%. So, how do you fix that, right? You need to raise your prices. And, not only do you have to pay your employee more, but then you also have to pay that much more in Social Security and Medicare, right? Your FICA tax goes up. And what else goes up, at least in New York State and many other states, is your workers' comp, right? The higher the payroll, the more they have to insure. So workers' comp goes up as well. And wow, I'm past my 10 minutes already. So anyway, let's move on to the next article. Worldwide, shares of major French fry supplier crash as restaurant traffic slows down. One of the world's largest producers and processors of frozen French fries, waffle fries, and other frozen potato products reported fourth quarter profit and sales that missed estimates. The company also issued a below consensus full-year adjusted EBITDA outlook due to sliding global traffic, restaurant traffic, of course. And, this is due to high inflation and high interest rates that are squeezing consumers. So, not only are the restaurants paying more on their debt, but individuals have much higher debt between all the types of debts that are out there, and their savings rates have absolutely plummeted. And sadly, as a result of the stock market going down the last few days, their 401ks have also gone down. Anyway, this is what's scary. Lamb Weston, that's the French fry supplier, Their earnings per share was 78 cents. They were expecting $1.25. I mean, that's about a 40% miss. That's huge. And they expect 2025 to be another challenging year. And according to Bloomberg supply chain data, they derive about 13% of their revenue from McDonald's. So, McDonald's is a multi-billion dollar conglomerate operating all over the world. And, they're a major customer of this company. And so that just shows you that it's not just, McDonald's. It's pretty much wherever they're selling, frozen French fries and whatever, waffle fries. Anyway, just to go a step further, the stock was down more than 21% in a day. And, rightfully so, right? You got crushed. Next up, the biggest bankruptcies so far this year. So Red Lobster, and I'm going to look to tie this up as soon as possible. Red Lobster closed roughly 100 locations and then declared bankruptcy. Miracle Restaurant Group, a 25-unit Arby's franchisee, for example, went bankrupt, citing ongoing. Who goes to Arby's anymore? I mean, I went there I think 4 or 5, 6 years ago. I went there because a coworker at the time wanted to go. It was kind of good. It was a new location, but it's still really gross, and I feel really gross after eating it. Do you go to Arby's? What are your thoughts? Anyway, Miracle Restaurant Group, a 25-unit Arby's franchisee, for example, went bankrupt, citing ongoing inflationary pressures, negative same-store sales, and the failure of the IRS to issue a timely $3 million refund to the company as part of the employee retention credit. So number one is, if they haven't gotten that money at this point, they're probably not going to get it due to the massive fraud of the employee retention tax credit that was committed by obviously unscrupulous, shady characters. And, my contention with that is these restaurants should have been properly capitalized and should have been able to weather a downturn without getting free government money, which is not government money. It's my money when I pay taxes just like you do. So anyway, 48-store Subway operator declares bankruptcy after a wrongful death suit, appeal denied. Never heard of this place, but chicken tender chain Sticky Fingers files for Chapter 11. This for low foot traffic in Manhattan, exacerbated by high prices for chicken and potatoes, left their 12-unit Stickies in a weak position. Another franchisee, 17-unit Popeyes, files for bankruptcy. RRG said losses at the 3 of its units made it impossible to sustain timely lease payments at its remaining stores, pushing the operator to seek Chapter 11 protections. Not for nothing, if this was my client as a CPA, and really this is the attorney's responsibility, but each of these entities, these 17 locations, should have been their own LLCs, and the other ones should not have been personally or shared responsible for that. I mean, this just sounds like poor, proper corporate planning. Anyway, what else? Cracker Barrel. It's gross, but I happen to love it. They've shut down a ton of stores this year. I believe that they cut their dividend, and they missed earnings. I mean, that to me, anytime I go there, you get a ton of good food for a very fair price. And they sell a bunch of tchotchkes. They have a cool little store in the front. They have they're maximizing not only their food space for sale, but their retail space for sure. So anyway, I'm sure they will turn around. They'll weather the storm. And hopefully they open up one in Long Island close to my house, because I'd love to go there. Another business that closed down, Hardee's, shut down 39 stores in 2023. And you get it, right? So this is all national. These are all national chains that either you know or know somebody that knows them. And it's not a pretty picture. And again, there's plenty of places that are thriving. Kava, I bought that stock, I think at $30. It ran up to 120 or something through the roof. I should have bought more. Of course, Sweet Green has been killing it. As I mentioned before, Chipotle has been killing it, even though it's gross to me. A local chain that I went to called Chris and Tony's in Syosset for my birthday with my girlfriend. Absolutely phenomenal. They were killing it. They only have one location, but they do a good job there. And they make good food, family portion size. And yes, you're going to pay a little more than you would somewhere else, but you get way, way more than you would. Anyway, From NewYorkEater.com, apparently every month they list all the restaurants that are closing. And, what's scary is in May, they had 29 New York City restaurants that were closing. So this is at the local level. And, in July, there was 16 restaurants in New York City that was closed that at least made their list. You know what I mean? That at least made their list. And, one that pops out at me, it's Last Call at 57-year-old Irish pub Neary's. So they've been there 57 years and they're closing down. Now, apparently the owner had passed away in 2021. They sold the building. But if the restaurant was that successful, they probably didn't need to sell the building, considering how long they've been there. They probably had it at cost. The former owner's daughter does plan to open another restaurant, but that could just be, she's saying that to save face, respectfully. Or whatever the case may be. But again, we're talking 16 restaurants in July, and that's just based on what's being sent to this local.com. And, what else is happening? Starbucks drinks is now half the price, more fairly priced. Yeah, they're way overpriced. We know that. They need to cut their prices down if they want to get consumers back. It's not about the experience there or anything else, or the experience. It is, right? I take that back, right? It's not that you have somewhere to go and hang out. It's that you go there, you spend $6 on a large caramel frappuccino, you feel absolutely ripped off, and then do you really want to hang out there? No, you don't. McDonald's to extend $5 a meal in most U.S. markets as diners return to restaurants. That just shows how broke everybody is. You know what I mean? If I had the choice of spending $5 at McDonald's or 10 or 12 somewhere else and getting some healthy food, where am I going to go? Me personally, I'm going to invest in myself. I'm going to invest in my family, and I'm going to spend the extra money and get not that you can even really go somewhere and get a $12 meal anymore, but get a much better quality, healthy meal. I mean, what are your thoughts on McDonald's? Is it just me, or is it just radiated gross food? I don't know. Anyway, Burger King and Starbucks continue to offer deals to entice diners to boost traffic. Starbucks came out. They missed their estimates for the second straight quarter. They're getting beat up by Wall Street. They have an activist investor there. Inflation, right? Let's talk a little about inflation, or let's talk about greed, right? There's greedflation and there's inflation. And, as I've said many times before, a company's job is to make as much money as possible, but do it without being a pig, right? Does Six Flags really need to charge $9.35 for a Diet Coke, right? Do these concert venues really need to charge $12 for an M&M's? And, the issue is these people are completely desperate. You're in the need, you need some sugar, you're at a concert, you need something to drink, you're dehydrated. It's absurd. One person mentioned paying $10 for a bottle of water at Six Flags. I can go to Costco and get 25 cents for a bottle of water, so what is Six Flags playing? At least, 25 cents. Anyway, we're almost done. If you've watched this far, please let me know. I really appreciate it. We're also going to go over some solutions. And, just to touch real quick, it's the high cost of groceries make you feel sick. You're not alone. Again, the cost of food's gone up substantially, and the Federal Reserve's goal used to be to average 2% inflation. Then we had hyperinflation. So, if the goal is to average 2%, in 1 year you have, 10% inflation, let's say. Then the next year you want to have, 12% deflation to get back down to average that 2%. But of course, not the Federal Reserve. They don't know what they're doing. They need to be fired. Food insecurity at an all-time high. I did another video on this, and, they came out, a local food bank, not a local, in Trussell Food Bank. They're saying there's a 40% increase from 5 years ago, and they're at a breaking point. Food banks see record numbers of first-time users as demand soars. So what's the solution here? Well, consumers are broke. Restaurants are getting to be broke. And, listen, if you're a restaurant, you need to stand out, right? If I had a restaurant, I would offer a low lead-in deal like McDonald's is doing. One of my clients has a pizzeria. His deal is, and this, I can't, and again, I'm shocked by this, as you probably will be, but their lunch special is 2 slices and a large soda, $9.50. I mean, if it were me, I would offer it for $5. But his margins are thin. The restaurant industry has very thin margins, but you need to have something that's going to bring people in, keep cash flow going, get referrals, and all that other good stuff. And if you're looking to invest in the restaurant industry, look for strong stocks that are growing. Look for small, micro cap stocks. Again, this is not investment advice. Do whatever you want to do. But I would also look for, industries or companies that are not subject to this. You know what I mean? I mean, yes, no matter what people need to eat, they're also going to want to drink. They're also going to want to smoke. They're going to also need their utilities. And I would also look for companies abroad, and I'd look for dividend kings, companies that have been paying their dividends for longer than 50 years. You also have dividend aristocrats. That means a dividend king has paid and raised their dividend for 50 years, and a dividend aristocrat has paid and raised their dividend for 25 years or more. And, look to save money, right? Make your own food, grow your own food. That's the cheapest way, right? Plan your meals. And so if you found this video informative and helpful, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. This took me a good amount of time to put together everything, and I'd greatly appreciate it. So have a great rest of the day.